Good evening, and welcome to another Judiculous version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your jocund and jocular host, Voice of Doom. Alright. Did a diatribe about 15 minutes ago and realized that I wasn't recording or something weird happened and it didn't take. So I got to do it all over again. Maybe it'll be better this time. And I didn't really have much to say except I wanted to make some comments about this Supreme ruling because everybody else is talking about it, so I figured I'd put my 2 cents in. Came up with a new word off the top of my head, judiculous. It means when various people have a cow and twist and turn about some judicial ruling that they don't agree with, and it's called being judiculous. But let's talk about judiculousness. Alright, so the Supremes were handing down a ruling about immunity for whoever happens to be president of what used to be the United States. And they came up with a reasonable finding that if you are working in your official capacity, you cannot be held liable for your actions, which makes sense. Otherwise, every president that's living today would be arrested tomorrow. There was no immunity for anything. They'd all be arrested because they've all been criminals. And every president has been a criminal. As far as, having people killed, perhaps persecuting someone. Could be any number of things, thousands, millions of things they could be guilty of. But it was a reasonable finding. And of course the leftoid wokester idiots went all to pieces. Because that whole thing of going to the Supreme Court was strictly to ascertain whether it was open season to go after Orangey. It has nothing to do with other presidents. It's just Orangey. We want to know if he's immune from everything he's done. So they weren't happy about that, and then Petri Dish, after his debacle, he has to start getting out there in front of people again because they realize that if he doesn't, he's lost for sure after the fiasco. But if he does get in front of people, he will lose for sure. They've got themselves in a hard position. They can't say, if we put Petri Dish out more in front of people and do a few press conferences, then everybody will be happy. No, he's going to make more and more of a fool of himself. It's obvious. So Petri gets on and does one of his usual blank stares, where'd you get that blank expression on your face kind of a announcement at the podium. No one is above the law. This Supreme Court ruling is a travesty. He doesn't realize that he should be on his hands and knees thanking whatever God he worships, which is probably Lucifer. He should be thanking his lucky stars that they came up with that immunity business. Otherwise, Petri Dish would be the first one in the docket for crimes against humanity. And I could come up with about 50 or 60 or 100 charges against him right off the top of my head. Extortion, bribery, influence peddling, nepotism, shell companies, many number of things, but I would go with my first inclination of open murder, having to do with the brilliant retreat out of Afghanistan that he perpetrated. 13 service people killed unnecessarily, which he would be liable for, and 9 members of a family who were aid workers and trying to help, blown up in retribution for the 13 perpetrated by Petri dish. So right there you got 22 people dead. So I think he should be very thankful that the Supreme said that anything done in your official capacity, you are immune from persecution or prosecution. But he's not smart enough to even see that, because he's a blithering idiot. And it was, I heard about the dissension by Sotomayor, who made me realize that I really could have been much more. I could have made much more of myself. I could have been on the Supreme Court right now, and I'd be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in perpetuity till I die, just by going over a few papers and questioning some people and coming up with some ruling. Because if Sotomayor is the barometer on which we judge the acumen of a Supreme Court justice, then just about anybody could do it. Because her dissension was like, oh, well, now any president can just use the SEAL team and assassinate their political opponents. All right. I'm not going to go into detail because everybody knows how stupid that is. But I think that Petrie should be very happy that they came up with that ruling, because you're not just going to use that ruling to get Orangey hung up on some charge that he told his vice president to interfere with the election results, or he had papers in his house that he shouldn't have had, which he had every right to have, but that Petri dish had no right to have. But they can't persecute him because he's too senile to understand. So he would have to be put into an insane asylum. But everybody knows the whole thing's just, ridiculous. Judiculousness at its finest. But I don't have to say much about that. I think everybody knows what's happening with that. It's autoimmune deficiency syndrome. And the deficiency is that the wokesters were hoping against hope that the Supremes would make it easy for them to finally, once and for all, get Orangey into shackles and behind bars and just remove him, because that's their main thing. Now they have a problem with Petri dish, because now everybody knows that Petri can't win, and they know that Orangey must not win, otherwise the well laid out plans of the powers that be and the elites will be delayed longer of killing 6 billion people, so that they can have the planet to themselves and use AI for their servants and just travel around the world in their yachts. And they just want it to happen soon, and it's not going to happen because Orangey's going to win. So we'll see what happens over the next 4 months, but there's some dates to think about. Now, July 11th was going to be a big date, because that was going to be the date that this merchant, whatever the hell his name is, was going to hand down the sentencing for the clerical error that was made by Orangey, and probably give him 30 years to life. And then he would stay in jail while he's still running for president, and we'd have a president who is in prison. But now even he is saying that he's got to delay it till September 11th, or somewhere around there, and he may not even be able to do anything then. Other dates to look forward to. I believe mid-July is going to be the RNC convention in Milwaukee. It'll be boring. It'll be one big cheer fest for Orangey. There's not going to be anybody chanting DeSantis, or Haley or Hiley or Holy or whatever her name is. There's not going to be any dissension. It's going to be Orangey all the way. And then it'll be very boring. Let's hear from the great state of Idaho. The great potato state commits all of our electoral votes to the next president of the United States, Orangey. You know, it's just boring. Who's going to watch that? Nobody. Now the DNC is going to be in August, mid-August. That'll be more interesting because there will be rampant rioting, and nobody knows what's going to happen with the DNC convention because they can't have the person that they voted for because he's not going to win, and they can't have the vice P that they gave money to because she's not going to win. So what the hell are they going to do? They're going to have a riot inside the DNC, and they're going to have riots outside the DNC. So most of Chicago will be a smoldering pit by mid-August. And I don't care. I'm fine with that. Always the Democratic National Convention that gets the riots. Which seems weird because the left-wing people are the ones rioting and the D's are the left-wingers. And yet they always riot at their own conventions. So that'll be good times. That'll be August, and then September, October, and 2.5 months from then there will be election. Which there won't be. Because if things stay the way it is, where you have demented, corrupt, old, idiot, fool, demon against Orangey, neither result will be good for the elites. So they're going to have to do something. And another thing I heard is on the grapevine from here and there is that mid-July, around the 16th or so, there's going to be an event. Whether it's a CME, which is a coronal mass ejection, which will wipe out the grid worldwide, or I don't know, could be anything. Some sort of a pandemic or a bunch of bombs going off. Anything could happen, but something's going to happen in mid-July. I hear it on the street. I was talking to a few street people, vagabonds, and they said, yeah, I heard it on the grapevine that mid-July, there's going to be a major conflagration. So we'll see about that. I think it's getting closer and closer, and we do have 4 months until the so-called election, and something's going to happen between now and then. It's obvious. And we're pretty much doomed. And it's kind of funny to watch people catch up with me, saying what I've been saying over and over again, and now they're taking credit for my brilliance. But I'm going to let it go. It doesn't really matter. But I did watch Karine Jean-Pierre give a press conference, and you can always tell when they're up against the wall because she's all smiles and laughing and joking with them. That's nervous laughter because she knows that things are bad. And I could pretty much predict and say what her answers were before she answered. So it's very interesting. You don't really have to see a press conference because they ask a question and you know what she's going to say. And she's going to say the same thing. The president is working to deliver to the American people. He's done a fine job. No one's done better. And he had a bad night. He admits he's had a bad night. He had a cold. And he admits he didn't do well. But as he said, and we made very clear He doesn't walk as well as he used to. He doesn't talk as well as he used to. He doesn't debate as well as he used to. We've admitted that. We've been very clear about that. But that doesn't mean that he isn't the most brilliant person who's ever occupied the Oval Office in history. So it's the same old thing, and we'll be seeing more of that. But my last diatribe will hold true. They will destroy each other, and it'll be fun to watch. I'm going to laugh my head off. So I'll leave it there. I didn't say a whole hell of a lot. I just wanted to talk about this ruling by the Supremes, because Petri Dish is has his priorities misplaced. Because if they ruled a different way, then he would be arrested immediately after the inauguration of Orangey. It wouldn't be more than 5 or 6 minutes that he would have the FBI at his door, dragging him face down to the gallows. So he should be very happy about that finding. I don't know why he was all pissed off, but you never know with his brain. So I'll leave it there. I think it was all right. Just give you a few snipoids of factoids, and I'll talk to you next time when some other disaster happens, which should be soon. Good night.